ready, and I think we are good to go. Welcome, everybody, to another live stream here on Celtics Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz, as always, with my co-host, Patrick Billings, and we're excited today to have a special stream with everyone today. We're lucky to have two special guests from How About Them Celtics over on YouTube, and two great writers at Hardwood Houdini, Jack Simone and Sam LaFrance. Jack and Sam, thank you guys for joining us today, and how are you guys' day today, man?
Good day. Nice out today. Very humid. It's gonna be like 90 next week though, so I'll take this over that. But doing well. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
That was terrible breaking news. I didn't know it was going to be that hot next week, so now I'm upset. I was having a good day. No, I'm not.
Patrick, how are you doing, my guy?
Doing good, man. 1 week from the draft. I mean, this is like the Super Bowl for the NBA, at least for me. I got my DJ Burns shirt on always when it comes to the draft time, so I'm pretty pumped up.
Well, I'm glad that you're excited for the draft. I know Sam and Jack have done a little bit of digging on the draft themselves, including like us on our channel, and we're going to have a great stream to go over a bunch of fun stuff with regarding this Celtics squad. Diving in, kind of hearing Jack's and Sam's thoughts regarding the offseason, some draft, maybe some free agency, and even looking at some other trades that have happened around the league that we've seen so far. So I think it's kind of really great to start off and kind of looking at kind of the big sense of the Boston Celtics, kind of the main talking point of this team, which is obviously kind of trying to shed some salary. And Patrick and I have obviously some opinions on what the Celtics should do, but I know Jack and Sam on How About Them Celtics have both voiced what they think they should do and have a little bit of differing opinions. So what are your guys' main thoughts with what the Celtics should do in trying to shed this salary coming this offseason?
I'll kick it off. Sam might be. Oh no, I thought Sam was frozen. I think he was just very still. As far as what they should do, I think it largely depends on the offers you get. I think the like default response that I am going to go with and think is the most likely path is Jrue Kristaps, right? Like I think the most likely scenario in terms of what a team will offer that will pique their interest in what is worth it is trade Jrue for probably a first and matching salary somewhere that is in need of a point guard, and then trade Kristaps for a team that is looking to take a chance. I don't think the Celtics are going to be in the business of dumping contracts. I don't think they're going to be in the business of taking picks to offload contracts. I just don't think that's the way they're going to operate, and I don't think that's how they should operate. And so I think if you can find a way to offload those two contracts, maybe throw in Sam Hauser. I think keeping Sam Hauser is the smarter decision, but sometimes it's just going to be difficult to manage that with the apron. And if there is like a positive, like if somebody offers you a pick or two picks for Sam Hauser, sometimes your hands are tied and you're just getting good value. But I think the most realistic and, in my opinion, likely situation is Jrue, Kristaps, and maybe Sam Hauser there as well, being traded out of Boston.
Yeah, Jack nailed it on the head. I mean, those are the guys. Those are the big contracts. Those are the ways to cut cap the best. People have speculated on Jaylen and Derrick White too, but it just doesn't make as much sense for the longevity of the roster to get rid of those guys when you have less valuable players making about the same money, at least in terms of Derrick, that you can get rid of. Hauser's contract isn't invaluable, but if you need an extra couple million off the books to get below the second apron or achieve whatever goal they're trying to achieve this summer, Hauser's probably the guy. I think that's a better move than Pritchard. Pritchard's contract is long-term, so is Hauser's, but it's less, and he probably gives you more. So I would lean Kristaps and Jrue. I think, I don't know, I don't hate the idea of keeping Kristaps, but like not going all in to keep him. But if you end up somehow having him when the season starts next year, maybe you get lucky and he takes a team-friendly deal and is here going forward making like $15 million, then it becomes a lot less annoying when he gets hurt or is sick or whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, honestly, Sam, I totally agree with you, and I think the more and more that Bruce and I have talked about it, it really feels more of a Jrue Holiday and Sam Hauser kind of hitting the hay, and Kristaps kind of hangs around because his value with everything that is going on is probably at the lowest that it's been in a very long time. So I think with what's going to go over this summer when he plays with Latvia, and then if he's coming back next season and playing beside Jaylen Brown and possibly being an all-star, I think his value kind of goes up even more. And I think that you can appreciate Kristaps playing at a high level and actually contributing to this team a little bit more to actually, kind of stay away from the rebuild and retooling in a positive way without JT. But I think Jrue Holiday is definitely the number one option. It's definitely been talked about a lot more, and I think Sam Hauser brings a lot of value to a lot of teams that need a shooter, and he's one of the best three-point shooters in the league. And I think that his value is definitely not talked about, and it could definitely be a lot higher than we think.
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I know Sam, you brought up in Nick's chat yesterday, like potentially seeing how he plays over in Eurobasket with Team Latvia to kind of really evaluate it. And I think it was Bobby Manning, but other people on the Celtics kind of beat reporters as well mentioned that the Celtics technically don't need to drop below the apron by the start of the season. They have to drop it by the end, I'm pretty sure, right? So if they do keep a guy like Kristaps Porziņģis, like you're mentioning, or a deadline, so yeah, if they are able to keep a guy like Kristaps Porziņģis, right, maybe they try to work up his value because I do think without Jayson Tatum, we have seen him at his peak performance look very well with Jaylen Brown in that 1-2 game, right? So maybe that we're able to see a cookies and cream kind of 1-2 punch alongside Derrick White here to even build up his value a little bit more, or like you said, potentially get him to extend long term, similar to a guy like Jrue last year, kind of middle of the season, but on a cheaper contract for the Celtics to keep them a little bit afloat, but also have that center room in there because there's also the questions about Al Horford and Luke Kornet's availability in free agency as well. All right. So with that being said, when we kind of look at those kind of players, right, talking about those centers for the Celtics, it's kind of like a key position here, right? There's obviously Kristaps Porziņģis with the big question mark revolving around him kind of really staying here. There's also the potential of the Celtics. We saw the reports from Grant Afseth yesterday, maybe trading up in the draft to get something. Maybe they stick around 29 or 32 to draft that center. Are there any key centers that you guys think that could be out there via on the trade market that the Celtics could go out there and potentially get, and then kind of diving after that question maybe into the draft or into free agency?
I think the center position is going to be very interesting. I think that might, like, in terms of trades, it's such a weird spot because I think a lot of the additions are going to have to come like by chance almost, because teams are going to call you, right? Like for most of these trades, like it's going to be a lot of teams calling about Jrue, calling about Kristaps. Like I don't know if the Celtics are going to be the team calling around saying, hey, come get this guy. I think it's going to be a lot of them waiting to see. And if that's the case, you're going to run into like what teams are asking for Jrue, what are the center situations on those rosters look like, and then you run into like Daniel Gafford on the Mavs. Like, would you rather that? I think I'd personally be a bigger fan of getting PJ Washington instead. I think he's a better player. I think he could probably run some small ball five, but I just think that 3-point shooting and defensive versatility is probably going to be more intriguing. But then again, like, do they want to give him up? Like, what's the balance going to be there? Like, who else could want Jrue? Like, because if you run into a team like the Clippers wanting Jrue, there's not really a center on that roster that looks very interesting. You get into the draft, and the Celtics, we talked about it today on our show that's coming out tomorrow, like, they're kind of a weird spot. Like, a lot of the good centers, Danny Wolf, Thomas Sorber, even maybe Maxime Reynaud are going to probably be, like, off the board right before the Celtics are supposed to pick. Ryan Cochburner kind of rides that line of could he be there, maybe, could he not be there, maybe he's going to get picked right before. So you almost have to either move up or move back and take, like, a swing on a guy. Then you get into free agency, and it's not a great free agency market in terms of centers, and the Celtics are looking to shed a lot of salary anyway, so signing a lot of these, bigger name free agents like the Brook Lopez's, the Miles Turner's not really realistic when there's going to be other teams with money competing. And then you get into the like reclamation project zone, which I think is probably going to be one of the more intriguing areas for the Celtics this summer, which I know you mentioned we can talk about free agency, so I'll save that. But I think the center position is almost going to be a by chance type of thing, and honestly, I think that the primary goal should just be to re-sign Luke Kornet. Like, I think you need to find a way to bring him back and make the money to re-sign him on this team.
Yeah, to me, the draft is the big day, or days, because it is 2 nights now. Having 28 and 32, it's kind of weird because it's basically the same batch of players that you get to pick from twice. With that being said, like, I don't hate Cochburner in that range. I know Jack mentioned him. The other guy's probably a little bit better than him in terms of what their ceiling could be, but Cochburner feels like a very high floor guy. And if you're the Celtics and you're looking to bring in somebody who can be a rotation piece somewhere down the line, that's not the worst thing to have in a 28th or 32nd draft pick. Like, the beauty of these picks is if you get like a Luke Kornet, you did really well. You don't really have that pressure. If you do trade up, that's where it gets a little dicey. Not to say they shouldn't take the risk, but the pressure grows. You have to really hit more, have to get a better player. Like, we talked a lot about Rasheer Fleming in the draft, and the two of us really like him. But if you're trading up to, I don't know, 14 plus, it's like kind of defeating the purpose of getting a guy who's going to give you more value than you actually had to like put forward to get him. So look, if Cochburner's there, cool. If Behringer is there, the French center, I like him. He plays a lot like Robert Williams. He's still pretty raw. Only started playing basketball a couple years ago when his soccer cleats didn't fit anymore and they didn't make his size because he was too big. So he's a lot of fun, does a lot of the Rob stuff, dunks almost exclusively, blocks shots, can probably grow on a similar arc to what Rob was. If you remember when he first got here, he was just watching games from the bench for the first couple seasons. I think he could be a good fit too, but the others that Jack mentioned would be lovely if they were there.
Yeah, I like a lot of those names that you brought up. A lot of them get me excited. I just talked about a video that I just dropped about an article saying that the Celtics are actively looking to move up. So I think a lot of these guys being options, but apparently they're looking more guard, if anything, than center, which is pretty surprising. I guess if Jrue is on the move, then it's not so surprising because of how weak the guard position could end up being with Jrue off the roster and Peyton Pritchard moving up. But when it comes to center, I think I agree with Luke Cornett being the number one option. Kind of keep him in the organization, a guy that played really well and is consistently going to get better, especially in the pick and roll with JT being the second best pick and roll duo in the NBA this year as well. But I think a guy like Maxime Reynaud, he could end up falling to the Celtics at 28. Kind of gives you that little Porzingis vibes. But I do like the Behringer kind of pick too as well. ESPN ranked him 14th to the Spurs, which surprised me. I really don't believe that. He doesn't really have too much of a post move. He's kind of like a run and dunk kind of guy. He is a little bit bigger than Rob will, but he does have that athleticism that I do really like. But I think that there's some good options. But if they do move up, it kind of puts them in a weird spot too. I was thinking a little bit more of like 17 with the Grizzlies. If they end up moving Jrue Holiday, I think that that's a guy that they could look at for the Grizzlies to fit in there and kind of play that defensive role for them that they need. And I think that could be an option in that 17 where you can kind of get a little bit of a big as well, a little bit better than Kalkbrenner, who's a little bit like a Luke Cornett, or you could kind of get a more polished guard or a forward like a Cedric Coward is someone that I really like as well.
Yeah, I think you brought up Behringer, Patrick, similar to Sam. He's like a very solid defensive piece. He's someone that I'd definitely be interested in. Personally, for me at the center group, I'm a big Thomas Sorber guy. I don't necessarily think he'll be available at that pick for the Boston Celtics, so it will be a little bit tough. Cedric Coward, like Patrick just mentioned, is also someone the Celtics did work out, which also would be very intriguing. But once again, it's most likely going to have to involve a trade up. Jack, I know your guy is Danny Wolf. Now, you probably don't think he's going to be around where the Celtics pick, but what would you think if he were with the Boston Celtics? And then my second question kind of is, if he's not going to be, where do you really see him falling? Because he's kind of all over the board here with some of these teams.
Oh man, I love Danny Wolf. He's so good. I know so many people are like split on Danny Wolf because of the turnover numbers, and my biggest thing that I keep saying is, of course, he turned the ball over. He was the point guard at 7 feet tall, and I'm not saying he's like the best player in the class. I just think with the player who very clearly has such a high basketball IQ and natural passing gifts, like that, like when you have a talent like that, sort of like, I'm trying to think of other examples. Like if somebody's like an elite playmaker or an elite shooter, like those are like rare things. Like what you need to look for in the draft, in my opinion, is players with NBA ready skills, and then you can go from there and say, oh, the potential for more and other things past that. Like Danny Wolf's passing is an NBA ready skill, and not only is it an NBA ready skill, but it's like more than that. He is going to step in and be one of the best individual passers on his team in the NBA. Like he is that good of a passer. I think the 3-point shot can get there. I don't think it's completely lost. I think the defensive versatility is definitely something to be worried about. However, he showed fine ability to play help defense in the free safety role at Michigan. He played a lot alongside a center with the Wolverines, so I think that's a very capable thing. He's an elite ball handler, and so if you want to use him as a screen and roll guy, like he can make plays out of the roll, he can make plays out of the pick and pop, he can drive closeouts. Like I just think his skill set is built so beautifully to play the 4 or the 5 in the NBA, especially if he can figure out how to be even like a net 0 on defense. Like if he can just be a fine team defender, he's going to be fine, and I believe in him and his ability to do that. As far as where I think he'll fall, I think like 14 to San Antonio makes some sense, where you just said Behringer might end up going. I think like that whole range of 13 to 17, Atlanta, San Antonio, OKC, Memphis, Minnesota. If he goes to any of those spots, he's going to be an immediate backup center, in my opinion. If they give him the opportunity, he's immediately going to step in. The Hawks are going to be looking for one because Clint Capella is a free agent. The Spurs need an answer behind Wembanyama. The Thunder run a ton of double big lineups. They already have Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. If they add Danny Wolf, that versatility in that front court is going to be insane. Memphis, I don't really know what they're doing right now, but Zach Edey and Jay Huff and Jaren Jackson, like they got a weird center rotation. They can definitely fit in another guy. And then Minnesota, who knows what happens with Naz Reid, and even without him, like I think you can run some double big lineups. Like all of those teams are going to be looking to try to be competitive, and I think Danny Wolf's immediately going to help that. If I'm the Celtics, if they trade up and get Danny Wolf, I might cry tears of joy. Like I think he's really good.
Then you'll be on the hot seat. You'll be like the number one Danny Wolf guy.
Bring it. Bring it on, please, please. Give me all.
You are the number one Tillman guy.
I was gonna say you're with Tillman and Sam was with Jaden Springer, so you guys got to get your new draft picks.
We gotta get our get
good.
back. We gotta, yeah. We gotta get our.
Jack has transferred his stock to Shireman. In fairness to him,
that is fair. That is fair. I still got my stock in Jordan Walsh too. I don't know how you guys really feel about him, but I don't expect him to take a. I hope to see him obviously get a little bit better. I don't expect him to take like a massive leap into this rotation, obviously, but I would love to see him at least get a little bit more kind of burn with this Celtics team to kind of just explore how of a lethal defender he can be for this Celtics squad.
Yeah, I mean, look, the problem with next year there might be more minutes, but the problem with Walsh is it seems like Mazzulla has made his choice. He's leaned into Shireman any chance he gets over Walsh, and Shireman just mostly delivered. Like anytime he's gotten real run, I think he's impressed. That's why we're all talking about him so often, thinking about next year's team, thinking about the extra minutes without Tatum. But Walsh still has things that he can do. He's a long athlete who is working on his three-point shot pretty consistently. He's always out there before the game. Looks relatively smooth, but I think he's got some growing to do physically if he's going to be a capable NBA defender, someone who can switch and not get taken advantage of by bigger players. Because right now he's just a little too skinny.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. I think too with Baylor Shireman, I think one thing too that I was talking about also with Hauser kind of getting sent off, if he is getting sent off, that brings more minutes to Baylor Shireman as well. And I think that there's a whole other game of Baylor Shireman that we haven't seen yet because he could score at all three levels and he's definitely a capable passer as well. I mean, watching him at Creighton compared to now, I mean, there's so much more of his game that we haven't seen yet that I think that Joe Mazzulla sees. And the only reason why we didn't see it more is because he said it himself to Baylor. He hates rookies. So I think especially next year with no Jayson Tatum either, brings in so much more for him. But with Jordan Walsh, it's such a confusing piece because out of high school, he was an absolute beast. But then he went into an Arkansas program that was absolutely loaded too. So he just hasn't had the opportunity. But I think getting the opportunities would be getting on the floor on defense and just being such like a hustler on one side of the ball to where he can kind of pick up some slack at least on one side because the shooting just really hasn't come into fruition yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot. Like Joe hates rookies thing is going to be interesting to see how it navigates next year. Like we're kind of split on whether or not Joe's just going to hand minutes to these rookies, considering the type of season they're going to have. And honestly, like I was of the belief that I don't think that's how it's going to play out. Sam was more like it's probable because it's going to just be how the roster shakes out. And I think that's the key. Like, what is the roster going to look like? Like, is the roster going to be Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, Kristaps, and the same team outside of Jayson Tatum and Jrue Holiday, or is it going to be they got a mega offer for Jaylen and or Derrick, and Drew's gone and KP's gone, and it's just Pritchard and the fellas, and they're holding the tide? Like, because it's truly just going to depend on what the roster looks like by the time October hits.
Yeah,
biggest mystery.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the biggest question mark too, and like just like the uncertainty as well, kind of revolving around this team. Because like even when we get into a little bit, Jack talking about free agents, I feel like it's kind of difficult to pinpoint guys, right? Because there's one, you don't know what need the Celtics are going to realistically kind of go out there to go and get, because there's the uncertainties of bringing back Luke Cornett or having the money to do so, or Al Horford obviously coming back probably on a cheaper deal. But also, like, if you do make a trade involving Porziņģis, Hauser, Jrue Holiday, even with one of those guys in a mega deal, you don't necessarily know what you're getting back in return either. So there's so many just like filler questions to really kind of I guess, understand like who's going to plug and play and be on this roster kind of going into next season.
Definitely. And it's really just impossible to know
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, like Jrue Holiday could get traded to the Mavs or he get traded to the Wizards. Like who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? It's just impossible to dictate or predict what next year's roster is gonna look like and thus what the minute allocation is gonna be.
100%. And then I think kind of just like as well, it's just like the Celtics as well, very quiet, reserved franchise. They're not going to leak anything or expose anything out there. So also just like that tight net around it kind of has that uncertainty rising within, I guess, some people and the fan base as well. But we mentioned Ryan Cochburner. I kind of wanted to go on him a little bit as well, kind of go into some draft players because he's someone that I really like for this team. I think he can kind of be that Luke Cornett a little bit of a replacement, has similar resemblances. And I think maybe, I don't know how you guys really feel about this, but one part that kind of I think is going underlined when comparing these guys is he played basketball in college with Baylor Sharman, and he has that chemistry and connection already, which I think is just a huge plus, kind of similar to what we were bringing up of if Joe is going to be playing these rookies and kind of giving them that experience, having a guy that already has some chemistry and connection with someone from the college level is just another plus for the Boston Celtics to kind of make it a little bit of an easier transition or smoother transaction for them. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
You can go,
Well,
Sam. I know you
it'll
like
be
him.
it'll be so cool in summer league. That's for sure. They'll definitely both be on the floor together at that point. I don't know if Mazzulla, one, will give whichever rookie that many minutes, as Jack kind of alluded to, but also how many real chances will there be for both of them to be on the floor at the same time? You'd hope not a lot, because if it is a lot, something went really wrong. There are guys who you would hope would be on this team next year who are no longer on this team next year. But I am a big fan of Kalkbrenner's just because I think he has an NBA ready skill set. He's a 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, 4 straight. I saw a post, I think Bobby Manning retweeted it, of he has like the most blocks or least fouls per block or something across all of college basketball. He's a very efficient defender in that respect. And he's got great catch and finish ability, which is what the Celtics would be asking from him. He's got like some semblance of a 3-point shot, but I could see them just kind of straying away from it and being like, do the things you're really good at. But if they want him to develop it, it is sort of there. He had a 49-point game or something this year. Granted, it was like the first game of the year against the like team they just kind of tried out there to get mangled to start the season. But he did go off. He had a cool game. So I wouldn't be mad. I think he could be a Cornette prototype who could be a bench big for you down the line. And if you do lose Cornette, it would be nice to have that. It would be nice to have them both on the team. So Cornette can kind of explain some of the niche things, the little things that he may do that the average person doesn't really realize, or how effective he is with his timing, getting on his screens, or breaking from the dunker spot, like whatever it may be. Sharing that feel for the game with Kalkbrenner could help him fit into the Celtics offense quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack, if you want to go first, by all means.
I was just gonna say I'm a little less high on Kalkbrenner. I think he can be a very fine NBA player. I really worry about the mobility. Like,
Yeah.
he is very slow, and we had Tyler Rooker of No Ceiling as a draft guy. Goat, love Tyler Rooker, shout out. On the show, and he was like, "Yeah, when you're that big, you expect to be kind of slow," and 100%. That's 100% true. That still doesn't like mean it's great, at least in my opinion, right? And I think Hawkpredator will be a fine NBA player, probably, but we saw some of the limitations of these super duper really big guys with Zach Edey. And Zach Edey's fine, but he was also a top 10 pick. Kalkbrenner is that same type of player, but he's projected to go 28. And obviously it's a much stronger draft class and everything, and I'm not doubting Ryan Kalkbrenner's ability to be a fine interior defender, but in the NBA, when a lot of things get a lot quicker and a lot of quicker, faster decisions get made of who to attack and what to do, he's going to end up being pulled out to the perimeter, or the Celtics defense is going to get sort of warped into this. Kalkbrenner has to stay back in the paint. They're going to give up a lot of these Jalen Brunson floaters or step in 3-point shots. And I just don't know how much I love what a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner will do to a defense. And I know they sort of already do it with KP and with Cornette, but I think both those guys are definitely more capable than guarding the perimeter than Kalkbrenner is, especially at a young age. Again, all of this to say, I wouldn't hate the pick if they did make it. Like, I do think he is capable of being a fine NBA player. I just don't love that type of prospect.
Yeah, I could totally see where you're coming from, but I think the one thing that like opened my mind a little bit more is because I didn't really like Zach Edey much going into the draft last year. So I kind of was like a little bit of a hater, and he kind of proved me wrong in a way, just because he was so big, like 7'4", 300 pounds. Like, how is this going to work with how fast that they play in the NBA? And I mean, he played pretty well defensively. I mean, granted, but I mean, again, Kalkbrenner is going to be that same type of player, but I think he is a Luke Cornett type of prototype. Cornett came out of college shooting a lot of 3-pointers, and the Celtics strayed him away from that, and he only shot 2 this year. But I think that they'll kind of turn him into that as well. And I think one thing that you could also talk about with his interior defense is the no 3 seconds rule in college. So maybe that could stray you away a little bit, that he's not going to be able to stand in the paint as much as the NBA. But I mean, people thought that about Wembanyama as well, that there wasn't no defensive 3 seconds, and he's still getting the same amount of blocks that he was getting at the same time. So I mean, that's kind of just past the point now. I think if you're long enough and athletic enough to get the blocks, you're going to get them regardless. But I think in the pick and roll is where he's going to flourish a lot, especially with JT and his guards being a little bit of a lob threat and just being bigger than everybody else. He's just truly dominant down in the post. And it's not a pick that would make me so happy. I think it's kind of just like, okay, like he fits what we need, and that's really it. And we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it right there, Patrick, how I kind of feel about it too with that last sentiment, with just like, I would like Cochburner, but he's obviously not like jumping out to me really as much as any of the other prospects where I think he'd be just a solid fit. And I like that point that Jack made as well. Kind of maybe if you could have Luke Cornett kind of teach him those niche things, kind of develop underneath him, that would be a little bit of a benefactor for him as well in this Celtics rotation kind of going forward. I know Sam obviously does a little bit of Big East watching with the Providence team, Patrick with Villanova, me with Seton Hall. So we got all 3 different Big East squads over here, but we all have our attention on Kalkbrenner because we all saw him devastate our squads basically whenever he would go up against them. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on when regarding that. And then talking about some free agents here, lastly, with both of you guys, I know Jack kind of did some post on Twitter kind of asking what some Celtics fans wanted to see. I voted for free agents, and I did check before and saw that did get the winning vote. So hopefully we'll get to see some good stuff from Jack on some free agent votes and picks and stuff like that. But with the uncertainty of this roster, talking about Luke Cornett and stuff like that, my kind of, I guess, twofold question for both of you guys, and Patrick as well, is kind of just like, do you see them bringing back Luke Cornett and Al Horford with the latest update from Michael A. Scotto, talking about Luke Cornett kind of getting near the MLE and Al Horford not really retiring, but most likely could be coming back to Boston maybe, and then also kind of looking at some other free agents that could be out there that the Celtics could maybe swing out and bring here?
I think the Luke Cornett thing will wholly depend on how, like, his priorities. If he wants a payday, he's probably not going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
If he just really likes Boston, I think he'll be back. Like, I think it just comes down to that, because I don't think the Celtics are eager to lose him. Obviously, they're in a bit of a financial bind. So if I had to guess, I'd go 60-40 he's back. Honestly, I think they're going to find a way to make it happen. And based on what he did last year, I think he just really likes it here. So if I had to guess that would happen, I think Al will honestly probably be back too. Like, I think we're going to make a lot of stink about this center position, and it's going to end up being kind of okay. As far as free agents, I think that's going to be one of the more sneakily interesting parts, depending on how the roster shakes out. Like, if they have 2 or 3 open roster spots or whatever, we already saw Joe Mazzulla overseas in like the Turkish league, and maybe looking at Nigel Hayes, or maybe looking at other guys. Like, I think that's where things are going to get interesting, where it is, will they take a chance on a reclamation project? Because next year, you don't really know how much of a chance. Like, for the past 3 years, all the free agent, intrigue for us has been, oh, Blake Griffin, or oh, this Torrey Craig, or oh, this old veteran who probably won't play, but he's chasing a ring. Next year, probably not going to be like that. Like, I have a short list of some guys who might not get a contract early in free agency who were on an NBA team last year. I have some guys who played in Australia, some in the Euro League, a couple in the Turkish League, like just guys that put up eye-popping enough stats. I haven't actually looked at anything yet in terms of tape and stuff, but I plan to for a video. But like, I'll give you a few, like Mamu Feely or Charles Bassey. If the Spurs, if either of them get like let go, and maybe you take a chance on them, or Trendon Watford, or a Jake LaRavia if he doesn't get a contract, or Then you look overseas, like Kendrick Nunn, just won EuroLeague MVP. Is his defense at a point where maybe you want to give him a second chance at the NBA? Obviously, Nigel Hayes. Or you look at the NBL, Jack White's a 6'6" wing who averaged 9 rebounds a game and shot, 36% from three. Like, there's just guys around who you can be like, do we want to bring this guy in maybe for training camp and see if it pops and then go from there depending on what the roster looks like?
As far as like bringing their own guys back, I have no idea. I wouldn't say nervous. Nervous isn't the right word. I'm just really intrigued to see what happens when free agency starts. Because you can heavily talk yourself into they'll be back. Like, why wouldn't they want to come back? The Celtics are awesome. But Tatum's injury really throws a wrench into things, and you could really feel strongly that Horford would be back if Tatum was fine. But without him being healthy, there's how many years does Horford have left? Does he want to spend one of them in essentially a gap year with the Celtics? The Celtics could be good. They could not be good. We don't know what the roster's going to be yet, which makes a lot of the speculation kind of difficult. I don't think we're going to know until those guys are on or off the team. I don't think they're really going to have the luxury of knowing who's going to be here to play with them. They're going to be some of the deciding factor of how things go. But Kornet, part of the Scotto report was he's probably going to have teams dangling the non-taxpayer MLE at him, which is $14.1 million. Do the Celtics want to pay that? Maybe not. Maybe not with their current financial bind. But listen, if they move the right amount of money and they can do it, I'm sure they would love to. He's somebody who proved anytime he got real minutes, he was a pretty impactful player. Like, he held up as a starter. He wasn't getting cooked. He wasn't getting tired. His numbers are pretty decent. Like, I don't think you can complain too much about him as a higher higher minutes guy in the situation that you lose or trade Kristaps or lose Horford, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think we're just looking at two guys that definitely love to be in Boston, and I think that's just kind of like clear cut to why we think that they would be back, and it's really hard to think of any other way that they wouldn't want to be back at all. So I think that's like definitely a tough decision, and I think Al Horford kind of did say that he was going to be coming back next season, and I would expect it to be with Boston. I don't know why he would want to leave anywhere else. He's kind of had quite the legacy in Boston, and Luke Kornet's definitely going to be getting a lot of money with how well he played, and I think he definitely enjoys it. So that's why it's just like it's so hard to think about, because the free agency, especially when it comes to centers, it's very slim. There's no one that's eye popping. I think Steven Adams just got an extension, so he's already off the board. And one player that Bruce, I was laughing about thinking about it. He picked up his option apparently, but Andre Drummond, someone that I would have loved for Boston to have for years, just because he can grab a ton of rebounds, and I think that would have been a great option. But of course, he goes back to Philly.
Greatest rebounder of all time.
Yeah, exactly. And he would be the perfect fit for Boston, but he just doesn't want to come here. I don't understand.
Sam, were you on the Pistons train when Drummond was there?
Not yet.
Not yet. No. Just had to ask. But I mean, I think...
waited till they got to be the absolute worst.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's the perfect way to jump on that team. I think similarly, like, that's how Kenny Beecham was with the Kings a while back, when they were like, when he was starting his like Western Conference team, he was on the Kings for a little while, and I think was riding that high with them in the playoffs. So I mean, you get that benefit when you pick them at their lowest. And
I can't wait to see if like they end up with any like former Celtics guys this summer.
that would be
maybe get like a t-shirt jersey.
Get like a Marcus Smart t-shirt, Pistons shirt, 100%.
Absolutely.
But I think you guys brought up some valid points. I think the uncertainty once again with the free agency class is like, and with the Celtics like shedding the salaries, like the big key with all of this. Once again, I think you both brought up some good points when talking about Luke Kornet and Al Horford. When referring to Horford, I think that he made some points throughout last season and this season that he wasn't really going to retire. So I do see him coming back. I don't necessarily see him like snaking the Celtics once again when he left for Philly. I think he kind of regretted that decision, hindsight. So I think he will come back even if he's on a better minimum. But like you mentioned, Sam, I think with Luke Kornet, if he is getting that mid-level, it's going to be difficult for the Celtics to try to match that unless they do move off of Porziņģis contract, or if they move off that Jrue Holiday contract and Sam Hauser, and they have that flexibility to be able to offer that to Luke Kornet. Maybe he does take that hometown discount, maybe like a $6 to $8 million contract, something like that. That is a little bit of a bump, but obviously a little bit of a pay cut, because we did see him do that in the past. And he is one of those players where he went undrafted. He kind of really found his mold within Boston, had some failed experiments with Chicago and New York. So he has some sentimental value to the city of Boston for sure, and with winning them a championship as well. Jack mentioned some great free agent names. I know Nigel Hayes-Davis is someone that Joe looked at in Turkey. I know NBC Sports Boston talked about that. They've been linked to him in the past. I remember I talked to this about Patrick, but when they took down Villanova back in March Madness a couple years ago, I think it was like 2017, 2018, I vividly remember those moments with Nigel Hayes-Davis. And then another one you mentioned, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Seton Hall legend. I want him to get to one of the teams that I cover, either the Celtics or the Suns. I think he would be so valuable as a floor spacer, as a shooting big. In Milwaukee and even in San Antonio, he's been able to prove that he can get those kind of minutes in like a low value, obviously kind of just like as a fringe backup. But I truly do believe he can take kind of that next step, and he presents something to Joe in his lineup that he would really, really like in that spacing shooting big.
I love Mamu. Mamu's so fun, man. He can pass, he can shoot, he can do a little bit of everything. It's just, can he do a little bit of everything well enough to actually play minutes has been the problem.
100%. Well, I mean, hey, Flava Flav's giving him that chain. He's having a good time. I've seen him I saw him with his dog in the calf multiple times with everybody at frat parties. That guy is a legend, and honestly, I would love to be able to just hear some of your guys' interviews at the press conference with Mamu, because I think he would give you guys some great responses to some stuff.
I'm not convinced we're gonna get Mamu. If he's here.
When Mamu was going in the draft, I like tweeted something because I was watching like the NBA draft combine. I was like, "This guy is good," and he DM'd me. He was like, "Time to lock in." I was like, "Hell yeah, Mamu! Sure. Why not? Yeah, I'm about it, bro. Yeah."
Yeah, I remember I think it was like a couple years back when he was like on the Bucks summer league team. He won like all first summer league team, and I was like tweeting out like, "Let's go, Mamu! That's my guy!" Because I was just so pumped to finally see someone. Because unfortunately, with Miles Powell with COVID and stuff like that, he never really got that opportunity, and then there hasn't been really money else from Seton Hall to kind of live up to those expectations. So Mamu's kind of our like golden shrine here from Seton Hall alumnus, so we definitely praise him. And even if he's on the Spurs or whatever team, even if he was on the Lakers, unfortunately, I'd still be rooting for him because that's my guy.
I mean, Bruce, we're bringing up a lot of points here. I don't think we brought up Daniel Tice yet. I mean, he could definitely be an option. And go out and trade him again for someone good too, right? I think that's in the cards.
Daniel Tice is always a Celtic legend at heart. I don't know necessarily how much he would make an impact on this team, but I think he'd be a great, Udonis Haslem for the squad for sure.
Can't even wear his number.
Oh, right.
Nah, but honestly, it was a great time. We had a great discussion breaking down this Boston Celtics team, looking over the offseason, looking at some draft prospects, looking at some free agent guys as well here over on Celtics Digest. We had a fantastic stream as well. We had around 50, 60 viewers at some points for you guys coming in here. So I do want to say once again to Jack and Sam, thank you so much for hopping on and discussing the Celtics with us in this offseason. If you guys already don't follow Jack and Sam, well, what are you doing? But two, if you're watching us, you most likely do follow them already. So check them out at How About Them Celtics over on YouTube. They have some great live streams that they do, podcasts, videos looking at draft picks. They had Tyler Rucker, like Jack said, on his pod the other week talking about some draft guys as well, so definitely check in on that. And they also do some great work for Hardwood Houdini over on the website side of things, so if you guys want to read about some more draft prospects or get any more intel, Sam had a great article talking about Kevin Durant and his potential of landing in Boston these last couple of years. Definitely go check those out as well. But once again, guys, thank you guys so much for hopping on.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Of course. And like we said, thank you guys so much for being here. We really do appreciate all your guys' support here on the channel, and definitely stay tuned, as on Celtics Digest there's going to be a lot of content. The draft is just 1 week away, so Patrick and I will have some breaking stuff going over that, looking at some free agents, discussing all the trade rumors, and many more on here. So if you guys do enjoy that content, once again, make sure to hit that subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next week on our live stream. Have a great rest of your night, and go Boston Celtics.